The Menya people have never written their language. They've never invented the wheel. But they speak a language that has as complicated a grammar and discourse structure as any other language in the world.
Carl Whitehead of Manchester, England, has lived here with his family for 10 years. To complete his study of the Menya language, he thinks, may take him another 10 years.
The single most remarkable feature of the Menya language is the verb system. Most of its verbs can have anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 different forms. That compares to English, where a verb can have up to 5 forms. It has a very complex modal system. That is, whereas English talks of I may go, I can go, I should go, I will go, Menya collapses all that into a single word and has about 14 different ways of referring to an event that hasn't happened yet, but that could or that will or should happen sometime in the future. That's the genius of Menya.
When we start looking cross-linguistically, we find great universals. We don't find dozens or hundreds of different ways of building a human language. We find a very small set of possibilities. One possibility has to do with the position of the verb. You can put the verb at the beginning, the middle, or the end.
The Menya verb, ariri, can have many different meanings depending on its context. It doesn't occur by itself, so by itself it is meaningless. It's the noun in combination with the verb ariri that has a specific meaning. So, for example, achingariri means she is washing. Hungariri, he is crying. Parariri, he's rubbing mud on his face. Tagnariri, he's building a fence. Piariri, it is raining. And there's a couple of poetic ones that I really like. The first one is referring to an aura around the moon, Qangwa Tagnariri, which literally means the moon is building a fence. Qangwa Tagnariri. And the other one refers to a special kind of sunset when the whole ground just lights up with a bright orange glow. And the expression is which literally means the sun is painting the ground red.
The reasonable first guess from all observers is that languages are utterly different from each other.
There are 5,000, maybe more than 5,000 languages spoken in the world. And if you're studying a foreign language, what you notice is how different that language is from the one that you speak. Of course, what you notice are the differences. But in fact, what Chomsky noticed is that these 5,000 languages of the world are really very, very similar.
Que juegue ahora, que juegue. Que juegue, coño.
You could even consider the 5,000 so-called languages that are spoken on this planet to be all dialects of one language, human language.
There was a tremendous change in the research program for linguistics right around the turn of the 20th century. And the leading figure in this change was a Swiss linguist named Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure thought of languages very much like chess games, that each language has a set of pieces, namely the building blocks of the language, the words, the sounds, and they were put together by different rules. Different languages, of course, have different rules. Interestingly, Saussure discovered every language has rules. There are no languages that are so primitive, for example, that they don't have any rules at all.
There's no such thing as a primitive language, or a primitive people for that matter.
And that was an important discovery, because before the beginning of the 20th century, people talked freely about primitive languages. What Saussure and the people who worked around him said was, oh, no, every language has rules.
Every language? Everywhere? In the Bering Sea on St. Lawrence Island is one of the last holdouts of a language called Siberian Yupik Eskimo, once thought to have complex rules completely different from other languages. Yet, examined carefully, even Eskimo turns out to be less different than it sounds. One scholar of the language is a native of the island, Darlene Orr.
The people here on St. Lawrence Island speak Siberian Yupik, and it is also spoken on the other side, and that's in the Siberian part. It's the only indigenous language to the Old World and to the New, spoken by non-colonial peoples.
One language, the verb might go in one place. In another language, the sound might pattern this way, but in another language in a different way. But every language has rules.
And that means, were you trying to call him?
There are two major ground plans, two great options in building a language. Relying on the order of words to convey the meaning of your overall thought, or changing the endings of the words one by one and then shuffling them around.
The reason this word looks so long is because Siberian Yupik Eskimo relies heavily on suffixation, using suffixes in a word. There are no prefixes or infixes in Siberian Yupik, and linguists speculate that this is probably the most inflected language in the world, which means that it could have multitudes of suffixes for endings. This part means being acted upon. This much here means without. And the last part means us. So the whole word means without us being sprayed upon by water when you're traveling in a boat.
Children seem to love rules. And it's this kind of phenomenon, the fact that children seem to love rule-making, that has led many people to propose that there's something special about the learning of grammar. That children essentially come pre-programmed, perhaps with some innate ideas about the forms that languages will take.
In advance of experience, the child is already equipped with an understanding of the basic structure of any human language. So we know, even in advance of inquiry, that there's going to be a fundamental invariant core to language.
Linguists have come to use the term universal grammar. It's a notion that there's some underlying set of characteristics that are true of all languages all over the world.
All human languages have something that is sort of nouny and something that is sort of verby. They all do. All human languages have a way to make things negative.
No way, Jose.
No way, Jose.
All human languages have a way to ask a question.
If I'm asking a question, I'll lower my eyebrows. Where are you from? What's your name? Who is that person?
All human languages have a way to indicate a difference between just one and more than one.
In the Eskimo languages, you have not only the singular, for example, ugaik, one rabbit, ugaik, two rabbits, ugait, three or more rabbits.
And so it goes. Each language has a list of obligatory distinctions. male, female, definite, indefinite, singular, plural, past, present. This is the stock of categories that the human mind uses to schematize experience.
And Chomsky asked the question, why is this? Why are languages so similar? Why are they all cut from the same mold? And his answer was,
there are fixed invariant principles, fixed invariant structural principles, which are simply part of the human biological endowment and that determine what counts as a human language.
it's because the human brain is pre-wired to accept only certain kinds of languages, and that the grammatical properties of the languages of the world have those properties that they do because the human mind has those properties.
Those things which are true of all languages are the candidates for what the child comes into the world knowing about the nature of the language to which he is being exposed.
The child might very well have a plan for what is a possible rule in a human language. So languages can have verbs then objects or objects then verbs, but those are two possibilities that every language has one or the other of. And the child can simply worry about which of those two versions his language has. What he's got to pick up are the particular versions of the rules that everyone else in the community is using.
You have this one, you have this one, you have this one, you have this one. Everybody got their pictures? What did your person do before they went to school?
They died to school.
He did what?
They died.
Drive to school?
Children are designed in such a way to look for rules in the data around them. They're very good at finding rules that are there, and they're very good at even overgeneralizing these rules.
What's going overhead?
I'm